Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, retail professionals, and welcome to Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, Executive Editor of Total Retail. Today I'm joined by Jess Stephens, Chief Marketing Officer at SmartFocus, a technology company that empowers retailers to deliver omni-channel marketing campaigns with true personalization. We're going to be discussing how retailers can use customer data to create personalized shopping experiences. Thanks for joining me, Jess.
Hey, Joe. Thanks so much for having me.
My first question is, can you discuss the benefits that retailers can reap from giving shoppers a true personalized shopping experience?
Absolutely. This is something that we see every day with our customers who implement personalization. And even the smallest amount of personalization across channels can make a huge uplift. We say that the uplift is greater than the sum of its parts because, even if you take a channel like email, for example, if you use personalization, we find that you get greater opens, clicks, a greater general click to open rate. But also you can layer on top of that more advanced KPIs like frequency of purchase and recency of purchase. All of these KPIs we see going in the right direction when you start using personalization. This especially makes a difference when you think about personalization, not just about the content of any message you might send, whether that be a channel message like email or a message that's shown on a website or an SMS, but also about when to send it and the frequency of those messages themselves. Once you combine all of that, then the uplift is really huge. We've seen uplift up to 19% and greater on revenue based on personalization KPIs increasing.
With those benefits in mind, then, I find it curious that so few retailers are leveraging personalization to its full capabilities. Any thoughts on why that would be the case?
Yeah, so do I, Joe. So do I. I think that sometimes, especially retailers, think that it's harder to implement than it is. There's a lot of talk about single customer view and getting to this single customer view to drive personalization and contextualization. Whereas actually what we talk about quite often is a single marketing view. So imagine you've got best of breed data silos where you have your CRM, you might have your product data, you might have your in-store data as well. It's not actually that hard to put together a communication layer that brings all of those things in to get to what we call this single marketing view. From that platform, you can very easily deliver real-time personalization and contextualization using third-party feeds. So I think that's a bit of a sort of misnomer that people think they need to spend billions of dollars and have huge data silos that don't talk to the existing system that they already have, whereas actually it's a communication piece that's needed to deliver this real-time marketing. I think also marketers got stuck a lot with data stores, and they ended up with a lot of relational databases sort of through the kind of late 2000s and early bit of this decade. And really with the big data boom that we've seen and a lot of things on layers like Hadoop that are much easier to get data out of and access in real time, I think that the data is going to now change the way people can access it and use it for personalization.
Kind of the underpinning of this conversation around personalization is customer data, as you referenced in your last answer. With that, what are some of the types of customer data that retailers should be looking to acquire to power their personalization efforts?
Hey, well, you say data, I say data, so you just have to let me off. It's very important to look at not just explicit but implicit data now. So when we think about explicit data, most retailers have a store of this. So I'm talking about sort of persona identity, my name, my address, where I live, my gender, my age, perhaps the shop that I like to frequent most frequently, the store where I buy most of my things, and maybe a little bit of my online behavior as well. That's kind of explicit data. But what we're seeing now in order to get personalization really smart is that implicit data that you can glean from signals about my behavior. So maybe, for example, around this holiday period, I start browsing a different category than I normally would browse. It's then clear to see that that's not something that's going to affect my day-to-day purchasing, but certainly might affect my holiday purchasing at different points during the year. So that's what we talk about now, is these different kinds of explicit and implicit data. So that kind of data we glean, that second type of data, is more like product interest or sentiment on socials, another good one, where you can use this data, which might be structured or unstructured, and turn it into something useful for personalizing messages going forward.
With consumers more often shopping across multiple channels, online, in-store, using their phones, how can retailers go about providing the same level of personalization across all these different touch points?
I think it's very key to change the way we think about messages. So messages are still often bundled up in the idea of a campaign. So you send an email campaign or a direct mail campaign, or you might have a campaign running in store, via print or digital displays. What we like to do is turn that on its head and think about the customer. So we find that if you trigger communications by customer behavior, rather than by campaign behavior or what's being called workflow or orchestrations, another word for it, that the results can be up to 4 times better than traditional campaigns. So like 400% increase on results from customer triggered campaigns. And I'll give you a good example of this. Anyone who's sent a transactional email after someone's purchased something, so hey, thanks for your purchase, they'll notice that email is opened at about 78%, that kind of high level. And that's because of 2 things. 1, it's information I really want to know. You've received my order. This is my confirmation. And 2, it's exactly at the right time. It's when I've just purchased something. So these are the full elements of contextualization that make things powerful. You can get omnichannel right if you use that customer trigger, so the content I want at the time I want, rather than pushing me through some sort of workflow. Now, include into this as well things like location data. Where am I shopping? Where am I browsing? Am I on the bus on the way back from the store, or am I sitting at home? Being able to use that can also change the omnichannel trigger that gets that kind of 4x increase I just mentioned.
And my last question, Jess, is do you have any examples of retailers that you think are doing a really good job of personalization? And then why do you think that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole of the Virgin Group, the group that's owned by Richard Branson, they do incredible personalization across all of their different pillar brands that sit under the Virgin title. So their holidays brand is fantastic. They have an in-store and online experience, and they tie up really well. They've also got really ahead of the game with mobile, and they understand that mobile and in-store can really drive digital behavior. So they personalize messages on the in-store mobile channel, and then when you browse on website afterwards. I noticed they also just won a ton of awards in Europe for their email campaigns, which have things like real-time elements, including countdown timers. Now that's a really, it's changing the game when it comes to email, actually, because emails become like small individualized web pages that are delivered just to the person that receives them. They render on open, not when they're sent. And I see this happening through the sort of CRM and email channels, that email's getting this second life in a form of advanced personalized email. And so, yeah, I'd say the Virgin Group in general are really ace at cross-channel personalization.
Well, great. I want to take this opportunity to thank Jess Stephens of SmartFocus for her time. I also want to thank our audience for listening to this edition of Total Retail Talks. Please check out our podcast channel page, mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on iTunes and Stitcher. Lastly, please follow us on Twitter at mytotalretail or on Facebook at facebook.com/mytotalretail. Thanks, and I look forward to you joining us on the next episode of Total Retail Talks.